What do you see here? It's a loop with pointers in it. Where do all those pointers point to? Where? Where do the pointers point to? A pointer is a symbol that points into a direction. For example, if you have a pointer to the right and you're traveling on a road, the pointer to the right on the traffic sign shows you need to turn to the right. What's the direction of this loop? Well, there is no direction. It's a loop. It's a circle. So every movement within this circle is a circular movement. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's static. But let's say that you are over here in the top and you promised something over here and you can only see this part over here and you know that there is another step over here. So you're so excited to move towards this place. So with all the hard work, you go over here. When you arrive there, you think, oh, I've arrived. Then you hear, there's more for you to learn. Then you need to go further. And here it becomes more difficult. But you're willing to continue because there is a reward awaiting you. And there is the punishment of being left behind. So you go further. You arrive here and you think, oh, finally, I'm here. No. That's not how it works. You need to go through stuff. And now you're being accused. And because you're being accused, you now want to defend yourself. You've come all the way. You invested so much in this, so you think, oh no, I can't step out. If I step out, I've lost everything. So you continue, endure all the abuse and all the mistreatment, and then you arrive at another place where things seem to cool down, and because things cool down, you think finally. And here you have a season of ease or the honeymoon phase. But then an accusation starts, and the whole thing starts all over again. If you are short-sighted, you can only see till the next phase. But if you look around you, you would realize that this is a circle. You'll realize that this doesn't lead anywhere. And once you see that, the spell is broken and you're free. Now, this, what I've just explained, a circular movement or a null movement, as it's called also. This is really all that the world has to offer. Circular movements, which aren't actual movements to begin with. And these circular movements are used not only in politics, but also in daily life by commoners. Commoners want to have control. And to have control implies that you need to be aware of everything and you need to be certain about everything. You can't be that as a human being. You simply can't. So what do commoners do? They group together in this thing called society, in which they agree how to look at life and how to look at each other. And everything that does not line up with how they agreed to look at things, that is excluded or attacked. So society is a fear construct in which a circular movement is presented as a linear development. So instead of displaying the circular movement for what it is, you see a line starting from here, below, going there. And depending on the situation, they give you promises down the way, saying if you comply and avoid non-compliance, you will be rewarded, you'll be accepted, you'll be all right. But the issue is you're never all right, because it's a fear construct. It's all about clinging on to control. So there are conditions that are, let me say, enforced onto you. If you are able to give in those conditions, man, you get a short sight of relief. But then it starts all over again. And that's how worldly relationships are. Most of the time. There are few exceptions, but the rule in the world is circular movement, which isn't a real movement at all. You see this in quote-unquote marriages, in long-term sexual relationships of other kinds. You see this in long-term friendships. You see this in communities. You see this in corporations. You see this everywhere. Circular movements. Now, a circular movement can only work as long as you don't see it's a circular movement. The moment you see it's a circular movement, the attractiveness of the pattern is gone. As long as you're not aware it's a pattern and a cycle that will repeat itself at your expense, the moment you don't see that, it remains attractive. The moment you see that it's a pattern and cycle that will repeat itself at your expense, in the long run, you'll begin to think, hold on a minute. Why would I enable and enact something that will ruin me in the long run just to please other people who aren't able to heal me nor resurrect me? Why would I forfeit doing God's will just to assist people who can't heal me nor resurrect me, so they don't have any real power of their own? So the only thing those people have is violence that they mask as power, and they expect me to validate their pretense of power. They shouldn't have a pretense of power to begin with. They should walk in real power that comes from God, but they don't want to. They want this pretense of power, and they want me to sign up to donate my life source to this pretense, and the pretense is at my expense, and I have no rights, and there is no place for me in the picture. There's no place for my long-term well-being. The moment you see this, the moment you see through it, it's not attractive anymore. And that's the thing with worldly people. They don't see that they are stuck in patterns and cycles. When you try to explain it onto them, they may even look at you as if you're the crazy one. And it's very simple. Those patterns and cycles are all society is all about. And that's the only thing they've ever known. That's the only thing they've invested in. Some became married on worldly terms. Others had children on worldly terms. Others are now stuck in a 9-to-5 pattern. So they've all invested. And the moment they realize that it's a loop at their expense, the moment they have to face this, they need to face that they've made the wrong investments all along. And that's a hard pill to swallow for worldly people. Some worldly people, when they realize this, they explode. They freak out. They begin to attack. They go into a psychosis. They just can't handle it. There is this movie called, what's it called again? The Matrix. And you have similar movies to The Matrix. In those movies, which are covert documentaries that the pagans make, they show you that commoners don't want to be free. Commoners don't want to face it. They don't want to deal with stuff. And I'm not sure if it was in the Matrix movie or in a movie that's similar to it, but in one of those movies, one of the characters said, when people reach a certain age, we don't wake them up anymore. And that's a powerful statement. Why? Because people that pass, or people that approach their mid-20s, and they're not awake, or better said, they're avoiding seeing things as they are, after they reach their mid-20s, if they wake up after that, they'll have a lot of things to de-invest. They'll have a lot of investments they need to let go of, and that will be difficult. And commoners in general, after their mid-20s, they likely don't want to change. They don't want to face things. If they face things in their early 20s, then they are in a healing process in their mid-20s. But if they reach their mid-20s, most of them are settled down, either just in marriage or in a long-term sexual relationship. They're in a bubble with friends and family. So they've already made up their mind that this is what it is. Not everyone, but most people around their mid-20s, they're settled in their thinking. And if afterwards they're shocked by the fact that they've been scammed, they now have to face all the relationships. They need to face their significant other. Then they also need to question, this whole thing of falling in love, what this is really about. Then they need to realize that their sexual attractions, their sexual expectations are all conditioned to them by society, that same society that's deceived them. Then they need to question their marriage or this long-term sexual relationship they're in. Then they need to face their baggage if they had multiple sexual relationships in the past. So there's a lot of things they need to process then. And that can be overwhelming. And if they've been deceived and their environment has been deceived, the only reason they can be at harmony or at peace with the environment is if they remain in a deceived state. The moment they're not deceived anymore, it's going to show in their behavior and in their body language that they're not comfortable anymore. And this is going to cause disruption. So most commoners after age 25, they do not want to be delivered. They don't want to hear that they've been scammed. Even if they find out the hard way they've been scammed, they will fake it just to make it in the world. I'm not saying that people after age 25 cannot change. They cannot make life-changing choices for the better. What I'm just saying is that until age 25, people tend to be flexible in general. Also because till age 25, you can still be financially dependent on your parents or on relatives. But after age 25, most people are settled financially in the sense that they're stuck at a job or they are preoccupied with social obligations. So for them to change afterwards, it's not going to be that easy. Let's say change for the better is never easy, even if you're in your teens. But in your teens, you haven't settled down in a social network yet. But the later someone wakes up, the more they have to process, because the more they have invested in the wrong thing. That's why you have people that will attack you, whether it's online or in real life, when you mention things. You don't even have to mention a deception directly. You can just ask a constructive question, and some people begin to attack you. There was this experiment done where a couple came and they had to answer some questions. One of the questions was, what is the meaning of life? One of the couples just discussed about it in a philosophical way. But with another couple, the wife attacked the husband. And this is quite weird, that the wife attacked the husband for a simple question as, what's the meaning of life? Why did she attack the husband? Because she never thought about it. She just went along with society. And in her mind, her purpose should be given to her by others. When she received the question, what's the meaning of life? She was confronted with the fact that she was codependent. And because she never learned to process difficult emotions, what she did was dumping those frustrations on her husband, because she always dumped in the past. But when she was younger, she could easily get away with it. She could dump on boyfriends, she could dump on teachers. She was more mobile in her younger years, but now she's a bit older, and she was confronted with the fact that she only got along with deception. That question triggered her, and all the frustration came out and she directed at her husband. Now, this is not a rarity. These things often happen. Sometimes asking constructive questions. I'm not talking about accusative questions in which you accuse someone in the question. Sometimes asking positive, enlightening questions can cause bitter reactions from people. Why? Because those constructive, positive questions show that you are aware of stuff. And the moment you ask those questions, it causes them to think. And when they have to think, they now reflect back, now they begin to realize things they don't want to realize. So then they take it out on you. Am I saying that you shouldn't reach out to people above age 25? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, sometimes it's better not even to attempt to wake someone up. Okay, let me give an example. Let's say you have a family. Let's say, I'm going to give two examples now. You have two teenagers who are dating because they plan to get married, but you see that there's something off with the boyfriend or the male fiance. Everyone around sees that this guy has a control issue. He has anger that he hasn't processed. Now, if they are 17 and 19, they're a bit flexible still. So they may not like it, but you can hint to the other partner that maybe it's not a good idea to be involved with this individual. Remember, they're not married yet. They don't have a mortgage together. They don't have a household together yet. So it's easy for you to do it. She can just leave and later meet someone that's safer for her. But let's say now you meet someone, let's say you meet two people who are in the late 30s, they have a household together, they both have jobs, and they have two children. And you see clearly that there's something wrong here. Now, don't tell me the wife didn't see any oddity by now. She did. She's just so invested in the social validation of her being a married woman and getting approval from her family-in-law and her own relatives. So she's invested in the situation. And for her to lead the situation, she would have to face divorce. She has to face custody issues. She will have to give explanations to her children. And if she's a divorced woman and now she wants to find another man, then she'll need to explain herself also. And she needs to admit that she has been codependent, that she didn't look at the bigger picture. So now she has to face issues about herself too. So in this case, it may not be wise to hint to her that something is wrong. Now you can do it if the Holy Spirit pushes you to, but if the Holy Spirit tells you, don't do it, don't do it, I'm telling you why. The moment you hint onto her that something may be wrong, and she later thinks about it and she realizes, oh dear, what have I gotten myself into? If she's not willing to process it and look for a solution and deal with the difficulties that come along with the solution, because solutions don't have to be easy. Solutions can be the best thing, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to go through stuff. Solutions imply that you need to process things and deal with things. The dealing and processing is temporarily. It can be very short-lived, but it can still be painful. And there are things you need to accept for the future. So in her case, if she thinks about it and she realizes, hold on, what have I gotten myself into? And she faces her own defects, and then she notes her own defects that she doesn't want to notice. If she doesn't want a solution, and she just doesn't want to proceed with dealing with stuff, what's going to happen? She can either freak out and take it out on her children and on her spouse, and that can cause a very dangerous situation, or she can blame you, and now she'll begin to lie about you to divert attention away from her. In either case, there's a danger. That's what you need to understand. When people are not willing to face things, they flee. When they can't flee, as an example I just gave on to you, of a couple in their 30s, then they escalate. They can either escalate against the messenger, who only informs them for their own safety, or they turn on those closest to them. In any case, people will get hurt. It's sad, but that's how most commoners are. Some are even like this in their early 20s or in the late teens. Some are very early with this fixed, static attitude. But most commoners become set in this fixed, static attitude after age 25 or after their mid-20s. So when you're dealing with someone past their mid-20s, check how they are. You should check how people are anyway. That's a natural and wise thing to do, but especially if they're past their mid-20s. If you see they're past their mid-20s and they still have dysfunctional ways of thinking that cannot be accounted for, then realize they are invested in denying the defects and dysfunctions. That means all the relationships they have, whether it's a marriage relationship or other sexual relationships or family relationships, business relationships, or other social contexts, all relationships they have are extensions of those defects and dysfunctions. And those relationships are only existing and can only continue to exist because of the dysfunction that they enable. So the moment they realize that, now they know it already, but the moment it gets through to them that they are defective and dysfunctional, and the moment they decide, okay, I want to recover, the moment that happens, all those relationships they have that are based on those defects and dysfunctions will disappear. And then you need to face that also. People past their mid-20s who are still in defective ways of thinking and defective ways of relating to people, they are invested in those defects. When you have a child or someone in their teens that are defective, they were just children a few years ago. And as a child, they had no option in which environment they grew up. So, yes, they have dysfunctions that they need to see. In their early 20s, it becomes obvious that there are things they need to process. And those that are realistic will admit this, and eventually they'll find help. Whether help comes to them or they reach out, in any case, sooner or later, they are helped. But someone that persists in denial, whether they begin this denial in their teens or in their early 20s, once they pass their mid-20s, their minds have been deformed already. They can recover afterwards, of course they can, but it'll take a lot of effort for them to process things. And if they are in an environment or in social relationships where improvement is not supported, it will be more difficult. Then they need to be delivered from that environment, and they need to learn to relate to people in a better way, which will also take time. So there are no quick fixes when it comes to deliverance and recovery. And that's what world people want. They want quick fixes. That's why they're stuck in patterns and cycles to begin with. Look, I'm not saying that age reveals everything. You can have someone in their 50s who suddenly wake up from defective thinkings that they had their whole lives and they recover. That can happen. It's rare, but it happens. You can have someone in the late teens that's already turned into a reprobate. So I'm not saying age tells everything. Nevertheless, age is significant because this is how the mind works. The longer you do something or the longer you cling onto something, the more the mind becomes fixated on those things. And the more the mind becomes fixated on those things, the more difficult it will be to change your mind later on. So if the things you're fixated upon are good things, and it just needs to be shifted in perspective, that's easy. But if the things you focus on, or the things you meditated on, were dysfunctional and defective, then you also developed coping mechanisms to deal with the side effects of those defects and dysfunctions. So now you have a mind that's polluted with compensation seeking. Now you have a mind that depends on external, social, and sometimes even sexual compensation. Or, if there is a lack of social and sexual compensation, you'll have physical compensation in the form of drugs or smoking or whatever. The longer the mind is in such a state, the more painful it will be to process these things afterwards. And that's why the longer people remain in denial, the more likely it is they will never recover from denial. That's why the longer someone remains in darkness, the less likely it is that they will ever be delivered. I'm not saying that people can't be delivered later in life. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it will be more difficult. It's easier to go through a healing process in your late teens and early 20s than it is when you're in your 40s. Because there are less social and economic consequences involved concerning the healing process. If you heal during your early 20s, you can easily shift during the healing process. When you're in your 40s, that mobility is either not there or that mobility is more stiff. Now, there is good news for people that recover later in life. Through the power of the Holy Spirit, you can overcome the difficulties. And you will have younger believers who are willing to assist you, just as I'm doing with these videos and with prayers and declarations. However, I prefer that everyone gets their deliverance as young as possible. I prefer in the late teens or early 20s. Because don't be mistaken about it. The longer you are in dysfunction and defects, the more it deforms you. And even if you recovered afterwards, there are consequences that you need to deal with. If you spent the first 25 years of your life in dysfunctional relationships, and all your friends and all the people you're around are dysfunctional too, if you recover at age 28, then from age 29, you may not have many social contacts. You may not have people that say happy birthday to you often as you did before. So there are going to be things that you will miss. There are going to be things that you have to do without. Or if you had a job that paid well, but you were trapped by perfectionism, and now you're healed from perfectionism, it can be that now you're not motivated by fear anymore, and that's why your performance at the job declines, and now you lose that job. So you may have earned, let's say, $4,000 a month, and now you have another job in which you only earn $2,200. So that financial loss is there because you're not stuck anymore in that self-destruction. Now, you were self-destructive anyway, so the fact that you had such a high wage was just a compensation to cover up the fact that you were self-destructing. And that's why a lot of people don't get delivered, because they're so attached and addicted and emotionally dependent on the compensations they receive, not realizing those are just compensations to prevent you from recovering, healing, and walking in life and abundance. There are people out there whom God will remove from you because those people are only interested in maintaining compensation. Whether the compensation is a social compensation, financial, sexual, political, whatever type of compensation it is. It can even be a substance that they don't want to let go of, whether it's alcohol or crack. It doesn't matter. You have people who are only interested in maintaining the compensations they are used to. So the only reason they want you around is because somewhere you enable their self-destruction. Somewhere you enable their denial. And the Most High doesn't want you to be involved with them because they're lying, both to themselves and to others. Even if they are factual and direct with what they think and feel, they're still lying because they're operating in self-destruction. Even if they're overweighted that it's self-destructive, they still shouldn't be self-destructing. So the fact that they continue something that shouldn't be shows you they are lying. So in any case, they are lying. And them lying will affect you in a negative way. Because them persisting in a lie is gaslighting the environment. So you're being gaslighted while being around them. So you remaining with them will be perceived by them as approval for their self-destruction. The environment is going to associate you with their self-destruction. So that's also a bad thing. And thirdly, their lies that they're operating in will gaslight you and have a depressive outcome on your behalf. In a sense that it either causes depression to you or it makes you depressive. So in any case, those people are not healthy to be around. Your mental health is one of the most precious things you have. I dare to say that your mental health is the most important aspect of daily life. You can live without several teeth, but you can't live safely without mental health. I'm not saying that oral health isn't important. It is, absolutely. But if you don't have mental health, it doesn't matter how bright and white your teeth are, you're not safe. There are people who just aren't safe. So look, when dealing with people, when examining people, don't think that just because they're older means they're smarter or they're wiser. No. There are a lot of dysfunctional, defect, and reprobate older people. There are many time bombs We just never went up because we weren't triggered yet. So, always agree with Christ and look at the bigger picture. Be at peace.